Okay. For people joining the live stream, we are going to be talking about a knotty problem, which is the representation of truly symbolic variables and generated parameters. So this is actually a notebook. Oh boy, I opened it in the prototype build. Let me actually not do that. That seems like a bad idea. This is a notebook from 2015 about a previous discussion we had about this. Let me actually move around my, let's see. You said there's this thing called variables, right? So I'm going to move my things called formal variables into that directory called variables. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Boy, I hate the way that this menu copy paste. Okay. All right. So here we go. This is our 2015 notes on formal variables. We seem to have a second one from that. What is all this?
Yeah, this is less important. It seems like some experiments. The variables notebooks could be interesting as well.
Okay. And what did we end up doing with this? This is for System Modeler. What did we end up doing with this in the end? Roger? Is Roger here?
Yeah.
Roger, I think you're on mute.
Zoom says his mic is on.
I think the idea here was finally using quantity variable for various cases.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry.
Okay, so what did we finally end up doing with the system model of variables?
I can't remember right now.
Can we look it up? I mean,
I can look it up, but not right away. Have some other discussion in the meantime.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's talk about, oh, look at this. We've got Axiom system data. Wow, already from 2015 we were talking about that. Okay. Okay, so maybe Jonathan can say something about Axiom system data and what's going on with that right now. Can you show some things?
Yeah, I can do. I mean, I can show the prototype of axiomatic theory.
Okay, that was its name, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to show it, or do you want to mail me something and I'll show it?
It's probably easier if I show it because it's not in the X kernel yet.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So the idea is you give some name of an axiom system, you know, like, no, let's do Huntington logic or something.
System modeler uses formal variables.
Yes, so we do the same thing. So we have all of our quantified symbols are formal symbols.
Okay.
And then the idea with axiomatic theory is that you would then be able to kind of, the operators you can override. So you can say something like, you know, instead of or, we're going to use F or whatever. But at the moment, at least, we're not providing any ability for you to kind of override what formal symbols get quantified over in the axiomatic system that gets returned.
All right. So, but to be real, in this case, you know, you say there's a formal variable, but there's also a formal operator. I mean, the or is just for entertainment value, so to speak. It could be an arbitrary thing there.
Yes.
So it's purely that when it's a multi-letter thing, we don't worry too much about it colliding with something else. But that's really not a... And don't we have the same issue? Yeah, I mean, Roger, you understand what's going on here, yes?
Yes.
Now, I mean, we had talked about, hadn't we, that the language... So we've got constants, we've got variables, we've got functions.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the standard elements in axiomatic theory, correct?
Right.
And in principle, in axiomatic theory, we could say, we could say in that association, we could say, constants, arrow, blah. I mean, okay, type this out. Just tell it some axiomatic theory, and then the association. Say, constants, arrow, and then a list, for example, or a generator function. Well, I wouldn't say E goes to,
something like that.
Yeah, but then we need a discovery interface for the axiomatic theory to know what the elements are supposed to be. All right, so...
Yeah.
Well, probably there will be a default, and then you see what the defaults are, and you can change them.
Well, Jose, you suggested...
What are the defaults? Go ahead.
You suggested using the kind of following the finite group data scheme of having, so you could call, say, axiomatic theory operators and get back a list of operators, or axiomatic theory constants.
Well, the idea was to have axiomatic theory be more like a data function, which is based on object comma property.
Right. Which means we might want to call it axiomatic theory data.
Right.
Okay, but so in this case, one of the big issues is what's the default? Right, because the default that you have there is stomping on anything that's called or not.
Well, not at the moment because we're using strings, but
that's even
I know you have some objections to that.
Yes. Okay. So this is very similar to a differential equation where you generate, or a constant of integration where you're generating C of 1. It's a function where you're generating something, and the most important thing is it not collide with anything that exists. And the second most important thing is that it not be too obscure.
And it doesn't have a value. That can really confuse. Let's say it's assigned to be the value of 3.
Yeah, that would be disastrous. All right, so the requirements. Okay, let's go back to my screen.
Yep.
But what are we trying to? What's the question here? Is it generated parameters, or is it?
Yes, but it's all of the above, because there are a lot of different things that are. Look, coordinate chart data. It's generating formal variables here.
Right.
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 I don't know what this is doing. What's this doing? That's generating some kind of
right. So
variable.
So more precisely, coordinate chart data is using pure variables and slot variables, and PDFs use formal variables, which can't be assigned to and so are essentially localized.
Yes.
So wait a minute. This is using both. It's using slots and it's using.
Right. So that's the difference between the variables and the parameters. So A is a parameter of bipolar.
Because those parameters come from the data that you didn't give it yourself as a user.
Right.
In probability distribution, if you used a parameter in there, you put it in. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I think so, but go ahead. What?
No, I'm just saying that there can be parameters there too, but the variables are not done as those runic symbols. But
yes,
but they're done with formal variables. But there is a path that's done to replace whatever you give with formal variables, so it can survive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you accidentally assign something to that X, it won't ruin your probability distribution.
Okay, so hold on. Let's go back here. We've got a bunch of things here that are generating formal variables. Okay, this is a case where it's generating them inside a function, which it doesn't actually need to do. Those could be hash 1s and hash 2s, but that's thought to be too obscure. Oh no, or couldn't they be? I mean, what's that? That's a primed version of that.
Right.
It get really obscure.
Yes.
Whoever's typing, put themselves on mute.
We tried with hashes for a while. It was just completely unreadable.
All right. So, look, one possibility, and again, we got a bunch of background noise here, which would be really good to fix. Okay. So, one possibility is it's formal variables, and we just say, I mean, the case we've now
I think
introduced.
the biggest problem with formal variables are all the dots.
I know, they're just ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see if we can't figure out a better formatting of them. Maybe that's our only problem.
Not really. The fact that they are limited in number as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, the trouble with this is it's either a symbol or it's not a symbol. You know, if it's not a symbol, you could potentially go inside it. I mean, that was why we were discussing before, like 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, we discussed it. We discussed it when version 3, when we were looking at version 3, we almost introduced a kind of symbolized mechanism in version 3. And I think Jason Harris has long had this package that does some kind of symbolized mechanism.
Yes.
But why can't we have some sort of parameterized infinite family of formal symbols rather than some finite set?
Because what's a symbol? See, it's either a symbol, in which case, you know, it's a named thing with where the name is a string, basically. And then all symbols, the only feature of a symbol is its string name. That's the only thing that is special about a symbol. Well, unless we start messing around with attributes, for example. I mean, in principle, I mean, if I say attributes of, I don't know what, N or something, okay, fine. Not very exciting, but
like E or I.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so constant is an interesting attribute. Because that attribute, I mean, okay, so there are a couple of features of this. And by the way, if I say attributes of formal A, it's protected. Okay, so it's a symbol which is by default protected.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, in principle, we could have some attribute-based thing that could be set for any symbol that could represent, I mean, clearly you can set protected for any symbol, but we could in principle set this to be, you know, I mean, the cases that we know we have are, you know, operator, variable, constant. Those can all in different situations be formalizable, so to speak. Like, for example, in your coordinate chart data, constant, aka parameter there. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah. So I pasted into the chat
Well, many times variable play the same role as parameter. It's just a matter of perspective rather than constant. You know what I'm saying? Parameter is more close to variable in many cases than constant.
Okay.
But different functions take different perspective on this. This is why we can't have a global theory, so to speak.
Okay, but fair enough. But I mean, so let's see, by the way, could we try to get Jeremy to join this meeting?
Yeah, I'll go get him.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So the question here, what is the issue? The issue is okay, we need things which have can't be assigned values. We would prefer if they were somehow unique, but I don't think we can achieve that without making a big mess.
Another thing that comes up repeatedly, and we end up building it multiple times, is that sometimes we need to generate, parameters, and the ways to get them unique is to use unique. But unique will come up with, insane-looking things. They're not for human consumption. I'm saying it might be like numbers, K dollar 10,031. Right, you're in the beginning of session, so it's fairly low. But so we often implement a scheme to make sure that there are no, a separate scheme to make sure that there are low numbers, so to speak, 1, 2, 3, which is unique to within that expression, but not globally unique.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's unique.
Well, but you don't want to see that in a formula, do you?
No, you don't. And the other problem is you got to be able to pick something up and kind of, it would be nice if it was typable.
What do you mean?
Well, it'd be nice if the thing you saw, we could clearly have a blob that has a UUID inside it. The problem with that, it's copy pastable, but it's not typable. Right? In the case here with your coordinate chart data, the thing is in principle typable.
Yep.
Hey, so Jeremy, we are talking about dottiness.
Okay.
Are those dots gray? I can hardly see. They are.
They're slightly gray, and they're generated by the front end.
Jonathan, could you just send me a giant dotty formula?
Sure, on chat?
Or mail. Probably better in mail because it may be multi-line. We really should have Wolfram chat sessions going here. Okay. Okay, so the first question is, can we do any better than the dots here? And I think we have to. And I think there was an issue. These are not font characters anymore, are they?
Just sent.
They're somewhere in between, right? So the A is from the font, and then the two dots are generated by the front end via some algorithm. So, and you would need John to, if we need the details of that algorithm, then we need John Foltz.
Yeah. But in principle, just like the thing we were just doing with the approximate numbers, we could, box these things or something else. We don't need just dots. We don't have to have just dots.
Correct.
It's a decoration of some kind.
It's an algorithmically generated decoration, so we can in fact change it if we want to.
Okay. Well, that seems like a win right there to begin with. If we could change that to be a box or a different color.
What is it? Is it trying to communicate something specific, or?
It's trying to communicate that it is a formal variable which can't be assigned a value and is sort of truly symbolic, so to speak.
Okay. Is there a set standard for this already? Do people do this?
No. I think it's a fair statement. For 100 years, there hasn't been a standard for this. Unless it's maybe using, I don't know. For some things, it's using Gothic characters, but I don't think we can really go to that. That was the early part of the 1900s. Does Jose or Jonathan want to comment on that? Or Roger?
There are various sort of micro standards. If you use a N, K, or M, you assume that it's an integer. And if you use X, Y, Z, letters at the end of the alphabet, you assume it's...
No, I understand that. But the question is, what is the case of look, when you have a generated variable, what we've been doing, like the C sub 1, we're still formatting that as a C. I don't understand what the generated...
You're in 12.
You're in the prototype build. So soon.
Okay, so in the prototype build, stat C of 1 is going to be rendered as some kind of other thing. Let's take a look at it.
Right.
I was going to mention that the standard for something like lambda calculus would be to use De Bruyne index notation, but that's a little bit unwieldy for general use.
What does that do?
Good question. I looked it up a while back.
Well, but there are two things here. One is how you ensure that the names are unique, and that's the technique of De Bruyne indices. But then typically when you are going to typeset them, you replace them by A, B, C, D. So you never see the actual De Bruyne indices.
Right.
Yeah, but those ABCD are just standard Roman ABCD, right? There's no...
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think there are general techniques for this, because in general in a book, there is no need to distinguish one variables from other variables. It's just our problem that we need to make sure that users do not give values by error.
Right.
Now, okay, so what could we do as typographical conventions? We could make them, okay, so I mean, one possibility is typographical conventions. Distinguishing, you know, the topic is how to distinguish formal variables. So we could make them, you know, so there's a variable. We could make it, we can't make it bold because it's already bold, I think. That would unbold it. I mean, we you know, could be bold, italic, double struck. How do we, I mean, if I say, oh gosh, is that better or worse than, I don't know, that's interesting. How would we feel about this? I mean, because that's the convention we're using for the C of 1, right? Here.
Would it stay non-bold because the bold's a mess?
Well, most of the time it would be seen in non-bold. So how would you feel about having a double struck A there? Let's try, what's a good example? Let's try this guy.
I mean, my main worry is then, you know, how can you tell the difference between, you know, a normal double struck A and a formal A?
Well, you're saying any typographic convention we invent, there will be, well, I mean, you can always say that. Any typographic convention we invent will have the possibility that they can be blown up by...
Well, if the convention is to simply reuse an existing technique, then yes, right? And we have double, right, you know.
Well, we always can name it. We could obviously just name double struck. We could have a thing which is slightly different in appearance, but is basically using the double struck idea.
Right.
And which is simply a rendering of the okay, so let's try this. Oh, for goodness sake. How do I do that replacement?
That should have worked unless differential root is no entry. Oh, it's because it's scoped by, right, it's scoped by the function.
Oh, yeah, it's head. It's in the head, Stephen. It's a compound head. It's a complicated function, right? So it's the head.
Okay, wait a minute. There, I did it.
Okay.
That looks a hell of a lot better. Don't you think? That's just dramatically better.
Yeah, as I said, I think that those dots are what everybody's not happy with, at least.
Yeah, right. But I mean, okay. So, is there a way? I mean, we could invent a function that is called something like formal symbol. Okay, and it simply takes a string and it turns that string. I mean, maybe this is too much of an unbelievable hack, But it turns
Actually,
that string
originally for
double
version
stuff.
7, we had that proposal that we would have a variant of symbol called formal symbol.
That would do what?
That would be make it protected, so you couldn't assign to it. I don't think that we had typographic conventions necessarily.
Well, then, I mean, because what happens right now, if I just say symbol of hello, I indeed get a symbol there. But what this could do is to return a symbol that is typographically different and which also is protected.
And in what context?
Well, you can specify the context, but by default, it will be global.
You mean the current context?
Yes.
Okay.
I like that.
So then what would happen in some of these things is in here, for example, it would return formal symbol of A, which happens to be, I mean, it's a little bit hacky because what we'd end up with is we'd end up having to have, I mean, the most bizarre thing would be a deformalize function. Right? Because the question is, do you ever go back from having a formal thing? Do you ever want to go back to an ordinary string?
Or a symbol, ordinary symbol, or
well, let's just write this for a second, okay? So formal symbol of a string. Okay, so now what we want to do is let's find out where. I mean, this is going to be an absolute hackasaurus here. Oh, actually, I know how to do this. Is that in private Unicode space?
Yep.
That's another problem right there. Is there a public Unicode double struct character section?
Don't think so, but I would need to double check that.
Okay, so that will be another problem if there isn't, because then we've got a serializability problem. Okay, there we go. So okay, so let's say now what I say is, can anybody help me with this with letter number? I want to say letter number.
Okay, so
Okay, I claim this will do this. I mean, it's not actually going to produce a symbol. I can make it produce a symbol here, and I could even set the attributes if I really wanted to. But here, if I say formal symbol of hello, I'll get that. Could be worse. So in Jonathan's case, let's take a look at what Jonathan's formula would look like. Do you want me to send you this, Jonathan, or do you want to? You can send me your formula and I can substitute it, or you can.
Sure. I mean, which one? I already sent you.
Oh yeah, you sent me this
Axiom
one.
system.
Yeah, right. Good.
This is ring theory, out of interest.
Okay. Happy to meet it. Okay, so what you're saying is this should go formal A. How are we dealing with this? If I serialize this, what is it going to do? If I copy this thing to a piece of email, for example, is it just going to blow up?
There are probably substitution rules, but I don't know off the top of my
there
head.
are. Beautiful. It's magnificent. Look at that. Beautiful. It turns into formal A, formal B. All right, so that's great. So that means the private Unicode space thing is sort of irrelevant. And really what we're talking about here, okay, so maybe we can simplify this discussion. And what we're really talking about here is just the rendering of ABC. And the fact that it happens to be rendered as double-struct characters, we wouldn't be, be rendered as formal A, whatever. And then the question is, what is the formatting of formal A? Am I making sense? Yeah? Did that make sense?
Yes. I want to bring something else in when you have a moment.
Okay. Well, let's just see what this looks like.
And would operators be treated in the same way?
Yes.
G and IND and things?
That's what I'm thinking.
As just sequences of formal, of what are currently formal symbols?
Yeah, that it would be that they would be named, they would use formal symbol, and formal symbol would make all of its string elements. I mean, this is, look, arguably, this is the world's most disgusting hack, but it's a hack that's been around since the early 1900s, this kind of issue. And I don't think we're going to, there's nothing, I mean, in a perfect world, we'd be using UUIDs and things, but, that looks a hell of a lot better. Let's see what happens if we go all the way with what are we doing with the F goes to formal symbol F. And we've also got inv, is that right? Inv.
And E, actually, which is treated as an operator.
Okay. That's not that disgusting. That's perfectly civilized, in my view. Now, we've also got a double-struct D. I mean, we've got differential D, which is being given in this double-struct form, and it's a little different than double-struct D.
But you also have reals, if you type in reals.
That has a tooltip. Right. So type in the following, Stephen.
Yeah. I couldn't get rid of all of those.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Escape DS capital Z, escape. And then \:2124. Oh, did I?
No, he didn't type it.
Okay.
2124 \:2124. Oh.
So the one on the right is the Unicode double-struct Z, capital Z, which is using presumably some system font. And the one on the left is our private Unicode double-struct Z, which is using the Mathematica font.
Okay. So?
Well, I guess one possibility is we could, well, I suppose this has the potential for code breakage, but one possibility is we could repurpose the Unicode ones as formal variables.
There's no reason to do that. There's no reason to worry about that. There's no reason to actually take the Unicode code points that way. It's clear that we've got enough that the substitution mechanism going out of private Unicode space will work fine. We don't have to worry about that. This is really a question of simply how do we render the thing that's called formal A? And right now we've been doing it in this, what we might call dotty way, which I just don't think is working.
Okay, right. Well, I was thinking ahead to if we wanted to have this formal symbol that takes more. Right. If we're just talking about re-render, changing the rendering of formal A, that's one.
Well, no, but the issue is formal symbol would be the thing that we would routinely use to generate, any symbol in formal characters, so to speak.
Would it also be used?
But that character wouldn't be sort of typable, right? I mean,
it is typable. It's typable. It's a pain in the neck, but it's typable.
Well, it's not typable in the sense that if you don't call formal symbol, if you don't evaluate formal symbol first, it won't have the properties you expect it to have.
Right. So, like in the context of this axiomatic theory stuff, if I want to override the inv operator or something, like passing an association, do I have to call formal symbol inv and then arrows something?
Well, arguably, okay, so let's look at that. So axiomatic theory data, whatever it is, something or other. Now, you are asking whether we could, we certainly could make that work in addition to having, we could have both things work because they are clearly mapped to each other in this case. I mean, this is, this hack disgusts me in various ways. The issue is, okay, what's the right way to do this?
Wait, hang on. If that's a symbol, should that be in quotations?
Well, I'm saying it could be the string as well.
Right, but in the second case, that doesn't look like it should be in quotation marks.
But it could be in quotation marks. I'm saying that we could allow the symbol and the string and the deformalized string. What is the right way to do this? So the issue is we've got to have something which is uniquely typable.
I think we have two different things here. We could continue with the variables being using formal variables, but then the operators, for which we will need a lot more variety, could follow something like the capital C of number, but we could generalize to something which is something of a string, and then it typesets like the string.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so the variables, so somehow we can survive with 26 variables, like the formal variables, I think. But for the operators, it would be nicer to have something that admits many more letters.
Yeah, but that's what this is doing. And I don't think this is that horrendous to write it out like that.
But we are going to find problems with contexts and what we were discussing of whether it goes through some operator that first sets the protected attribute and things like that.
Why? I mean, I don't understand why. I'm not seeing why that's a problem here. I mean, in other words, the thing that seems very weird is going back from the formal symbol name to the non-formal symbol name. In other words,
so I guess my point is, do we really need the operators to be symbols? Can they be something compound?
Well, in this particular case?
In general. For the variables, clearly, it's better if they are symbols because they may get into functions. But the functions themselves, we could use something like, instead of capital C of 1, could use something of or string.
Well, notice that C of 1, we're subscripting those things. Right? In the case of the C object, we're subscripting it.
Yes. But imagine that we had some formal function head that takes things and formats them like the string.
You know, what's scary about that is it's, you know, it reminds me of inactivated, which is a whole nother, you know, inactive sum, you know, n squared to n or whatever, right? That's somewhat similar to this.
Yes, but I wasn't thinking, I still think it's useful if we manipulate strings, basically, because we avoid all the problems with contexts of the symbols. Because, for example, if we have to generate these objects during build time, the build system may complain about global.
The current formal symbols are created in system context, right?
Correct. Yes.
Not in the global context.
So why wouldn't we do that with formal symbol?
Well, if it's going to be an arbitrary number of
I mean,
operators?
there are issues with that, right? Because the system symbols are magic in various ways, not the least of which is how they're sent over MathLink. And so, you know, you will start having issues with subkernels and whatnot if you're automatically generating new system symbols.
What's special about them in terms of the subkernel communication?
I believe, well, the known ones are actually not sent as symbols, but as codes. And other ones are still sent as symbols, but without the context.
Okay. All right. But so, I mean, that optimization might get very weird if you, but okay, so let's just look at these other examples here. Okay, so in this case, we are now committing ourselves to using C of 1. Do we actually want that, or would we prefer to have used formal C? Could whoever's typing or making a noise in the background mute themselves?
I think for the cases that we have with rsolve, dsolve, reduce, C is a perfectly good default. You can set it to whatever you want, but it's a perfectly good default. And the fact that it comes out subscripted makes everything look more...
Okay, what about the K?
Right. That would have been nice to have some kind of formal symbol for. Those are different.
We could.
But people hate the dots. They do everything they can.
I know. So I know. Everybody is running away from the dots, right? We got it. But I'm saying if it's double struck instead of dotted, I don't think we're nearly as upset about it. I mean, let's look at what this guy looks like. If I take that thing and I say K sub 1 goes to, you know, double struck, actually, I could just say goes to formal. Well, it might not evaluate correctly. Let's just say double struck. Okay. Maybe we could put the subscript in there. Well, here, let's just do that. That's rather beautiful. There's no problem with that at all. Do you agree, Roger?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we talking about new typesetting for K of I, or?
I think we're talking about making the generated symbol, in the case of summation variables, be a formal symbol, not K.
Okay.
Default.
Which is fine, but we may need more than one. So then the question is, do we index them or do we use?
I think we index them. But, well, we can use... That's a good question, whether we have KLM and so on and so on and so on. I think probably we index them. And we know if we need to index them. In other words, if there's just one of them, we don't need to index it. See, the advantage of having this thing be a symbol is that everything will just work. There'll be no kind of... Okay, let's take a look at some of these other ones here. we also separately have the issue of whether we have a symbol, blah, 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 sub max, and so on.
Yeah, that would be, there's a lot of programming constructs that are very, they don't accept any, like module and block and function and so on. If you give it, a of 1, square bracket 1, or a sub 1, they fail.
Yeah,
so we have a.
But I mean, I think that the way to deal with that, something like this formal symbol thing that symbolizes X sub min, for example. Right? Because I mean, I can certainly type a string, X sub min is a perfectly good string, right? And if I say symbol of that, what's it going to do?
It's going to fail.
But there's no real reason why that fails, is there?
Well, that's the discussion we've been back to a few times. But I still don't.
Over the course of 20 years.
I still don't see what the issue is. I mean, it's like, what is the problem?
Well, the problem is that, right, it's linear syntax now.
Yeah, but you don't, I mean, but really, on the other hand, so linear syntax is very rich. I could have a whole integral be a symbol.
Yes, you could.
Right.
But we don't really need that. We need sort of subscripts and superscripts. And that's...
Right.
Well, the fact is that linear syntax is overly complicated, right? Because there is a linear syntax form for this, which is perfectly civilized. It's just that, right? No, why doesn't that work?
Because you didn't insert the linear syntax operators, right? So you'd need backslash, and then, yep, and that will work. But yes, this was changed for a reason, and this is correct.
What was changed for a reason?
The out using the full form boxes and for full form of strings.
Why?
Because besides the fact that it fixed a lot of bugs, it's part of the project to have sort of the string box. I don't think we should get distracted with this right now.
But if I say, for example, string length of %41, it's going to be some
large number
thing, 28. Okay.
Right.
Well,
on the other hand, you can do 2 expression of %41.
Yeah, and it will be perfectly nice.
Right, because it'll now be subscript of X comma min.
Right. So, I mean, the question here is, why are we not allowing symbol to eat things like that if it wants to? So one problem is you'd never know if that was a symbol or a composite thing. But I think at this point, we've gotten a little bit more sophisticated about, so, in this case, okay, so let's just head this as composite symbols. So the thing that
I'm trying to recall, because it's like almost 20 years ago that we had this discussion. And I think that some of the things that came up was like, oh yeah, do you want a pattern match on?
Yes, it's hopeless to pattern match on the min, okay? I'll tell you the new game in town here is that we could, 20 years ago when we were talking about this for version, what was it for? It was for...
Post 3, it was probably in 3 too, but it was definitely for 4 as well, came up.
I remember that it was a discussion, the discussion of this was right before release, and just for the humor channel here, it was a discussion where we started the design discussion. I did a 2.5-hour drive. We were continuing the design discussion. Eventually, I decided I was not necessary for the design discussion. I put the thing on hold, went out to dinner for 2 hours, came back, the design discussion was still going on. And it didn't come to a conclusion. Okay, but the new game in town is that we could render the XMen differently. We've never had that 20 years ago, we didn't seriously consider that possibility. See what I'm saying? So we could render the XMen so that it doesn't look like, because that just looks like X sub min, like X squared, like anything else. So the question is if we were using this composite symbol, is there a way with color or rendering somehow, this is a Jeremy question, that
Right,
we could...
But then it wouldn't be typable. And I think you've lost the battle, right?
It's not typable. It's not typable without the symbol wrapper. I mean, the only way to make it typable, the good news is that, there's a way to make it typable, right? There's a way to make it typable, which is to have the symbol wrapper be a command key, right? To make a command key, okay. Okay, so the answer is have a command key that does symbol and evaluates in place. Okay, what is this analogous to? Which is analogous to iconize, right? Which has that same behavior, right? So in other words, if I type something like, this, and I go here, and in this particular case, I'm getting the iconize. We don't have a command key for iconize at this time.
Yeah, we do in the prototype build.
What is it?
I think it's Shift Control I, but you'd have to look in the menu.
Okay, well, fine. But if we had a similar thing here that had a similar typographic convention, we would be able to do this. You would type X sub min, the procedure would be you'd type X sub min, and then you'd press this button and it would turn it into a symbol. And it would be typographically different. Now, arguably, well, okay. So one weird thing to do, no, this is not a good idea. The question is XMen should be able to be set, should be able to be used as a symbol like anything else with, assigned values to it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think we would be able to do, once we have it as a symbol, we can't get it as a symbol, we should be able to, there's no reason to not have XMen blank and things like this, which we wanted for a long, long time. Am I making sense?
Yeah. I think that would be wonderful. I think that the biggest problem, one of the big problems that we encounter is that a lot of things in the core language, if you like, like maybe table is fixed now, and we've fixed all the calculus-like functions to not have that issue. But module and function and all of these things, you want them there too, but they don't work. Anything that has to do with a core programming language.
Right. Well, okay, so look, there are two possibilities. Either we change the behavior, but that was the slippery slope that we went on 20 years ago. Where, and then the real question is you have XMin and it's an expression, not a symbol. Can you pattern match on the min, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everything goes to hell from there on out. Am I making sense? So if it's not an integrated thing, if you think you're going to monkey around with its insides as opposed to merely use it as a typographic handle, then it's then it all gets confused.
Right, and I think, one of my worries is, okay, so we have normal subscripts where you can pattern match, right? You can do X_blank and pick out the subscripted X's, and then we have these other guys which are sort of...
Well, I know.
Symbolized.
What's that?
Symbolized.
Yes, but if there's a typographic convention, it's pretty obvious what you can, get into and what you can't.
I think it's a pretty subtle distinction. Everybody in this conversation understands that. I'm not sure.
Well, it depends on what it looks like. It depends on what it depends on what it looks like. We haven't been able to do X sub min as, the other possibility is to take another crack at seeing whether we can flow it into functions like module and pattern matching. I mean, as I say, the last time we looked at this, our principles might have, well, I don't know, not our way of looking at it might have changed since then. The last time we looked at it, it was an incredibly slippery slope that quickly fell apart.
I think it's very important to not let it go insane, to bound it somehow. Otherwise, it's undoable very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, well, the other possibility, but
here's what we've been doing, for these functions that look like iterators, but they don't use these core programming language constructs like block and so on, because those are not equipped to handle it. But they literally replace in a first round, and then they can go into block and so on. And the implementation could do similarly, for God's sake, if it has problems.
I'm sorry. What did you just say? I'm sorry. I spaced out.
The way we've been fixing these for sum and table and integrate and so on is that there is a pass that's done that replaces all these, so that if it needs to use block and these, more simple programming constructs, that it replaces them with something that's valid for those guys to use, and then goes back again afterwards.
Yeah. And you're saying we could do that for the programming language constructs too?
Yeah.
We should investigate that. Okay, let's investigate that. That's one separate thing. The independent question. Oh boy. So your claim would be, if we did that, maybe we could have a formal symbol thing that is a wrapper rather than being an actual symbol. Is that your idea?
I think we're talking about two things. One is getting something that's better than the dots for formal symbols.
Yes.
That are protected. That's one thing. And I think that's separate from having richer looking symbols. I think it's useful to not, if we put them together, it might again be one of these that don't go anywhere.
Well, fair enough. But I mean, so let's get to some decisions. Okay. First of all, let's try using double struck instead of dots just to render formal A through Z. Okay. And we might want to change, if we can change the appearance of the double structs, then so be it. Maybe we can have some gray double strucking or something like that. I'm not sure. But I don't think the double struck on its own looks bad.
I'm not sure we have double struck Greek characters anyway, so those will be new, right? I mean, this will have to be sort of algorithmically generated. Well, I think we'd want these to be algorithmically generated rather than.
Okay, so Jeremy has examples here.
Yeah, there's some flavors of double struck. We've got, we're seeing monospaced, basically, the kind of courier variant, but there's also this Arial, the sans and the serif version we could use. Plus italics, we could throw that in there.
Right. And what about Greek and so on?
I didn't look for that yet.
Okay.
So we have formal Greek letters, but I don't know that we have double struck Greek letters.
No, I understand.
So
and we will need, yes, we would need that.
Right.
Okay. But I mean, this is a question of a font rendering type thing. And, I know it's a pain to produce that. But, relative to having dots all over the place, I think we can, there's better solutions there. I mean, there may be some other typographic mechanism that isn't double struckness, although double struckness seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, and I think it sort of I think it carries less baggage than something like Gothic. Like if I saw a Gothic letter, I would think that's a Lie algebra.
If I saw a Gothic letter, I would think it was an old-fashioned German document. I mean,
well,
they're not so readable. I mean, Gothic is not the most readable.
Right.
But in in a similar way, if I saw a double struck letter, I'd think it's a set.
Right.
Well, so the question is there any other, I mean...
Right, and we have the script letters, which I don't know if that's useful for this, but...
Those are easier to read.
They're a little weird.
Forgot this game.
Great. Magnificorial. What the heck is that?
That means that we don't actually have characters or glyphs for those points, and
I realize that.
probably... I'm actually not sure why that is.
These
That
are
is
all in private
surprising.
Unicode space.
Yeah,
But it's I think it's our own font, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
to be.
right. So I would this would be an archaeological endeavor to tell you why, but off the top of my head, I would guess that we had the other ones for some reason elsewhere, and so
Yeah, the
You know what I
characters
bet they
exist.
are? You know what I bet they are? I bet those exist in Unicode. That we're picking those ones up from Unicode. That there is a script E in Unicode, but it isn't in the sequence here, which is very weird.
Yep, script E is 8495, which is clearly basic Unicode. So one of the, right, we were sort of the first to really go whole hog, but because, we were sort of in development with Unicode, then, we have some of our own idiosyncrasies as a result.
Yes. Yeah, 25-year Unicode users. Okay. Well, we need to wrap this meeting up, but I think what we're concluding here is we probably should continue this, but I think we've made very good progress. I think we've concluded two things. First of all, we're going to use some typographic convention for formal symbols that is less arresting than dots. We probably will have a function called formal symbol that creates the formalized version of any string as a symbol, protecting it and using whatever typographic convention we're using. And we also are going to do an investigation of whether we can finally get XMen to work. Fair?
If formal symbol is going to probably become a function, should I provisionally use that as the wrapper in sort of axiomatic theory data?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, unless somebody's violently disagreed, I think we can implement. Yeah, go ahead.
I am not convinced of formal symbol yet, right? Because most of the places where we want to use these, right? It's the whole right. Basically, it's the whole. It needs to evaluate first in order to do something useful, right? And so
that's correct, but that's why I'm suggesting that we have
and in most cases, right, it's going to, or certainly in a lot of cases, it's going to be inside of held constructs, so you'll need to sort of inject it.
Well, and if you want inv or something as a formal symbol, you're probably going to want to type inv and then press Control Shift F or something, or whatever, Control Command F, I don't know what it'll be, to make it, to formalize it, so to speak. I mean, we're not going to get a completely free lunch here. It's not going to be typable as simply as you can type the standard characters, because it isn't the standard characters. Right? So I think that's the least horrifying of the things we've seen here. Now, the only other possibility is that we can have a typographic convention that is not character-based, that's some kind of background color or something like this. But I personally think these character-based ones look okay. All right, let's wrap it up for now. Let's investigate it a little bit more and continue. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, see you all soon.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.